What up, y'all? College football outsider coming at you with another video. Oklahoma's going to take a step back in 2022. That's just all there is to it. I know there's a lot of excitement over in Norman. You know, a lot of feelings, a lot of emotion. You know, for the first time, a lot of Oklahoma fans are feeling what it's like to lose your head coach, to feel those emotions of anger, of resentment that someone left you for a place that they consider to be greener pastures. You know, and then all the panic that ensues following losing one of the greatest coaches, one of the most successful coaches you've had. Um, I mean, like, okay, look, no Natty, but like, come on, dude. Oh, Lincoln Riley, what he did at Oklahoma, pretty much unprecedented, especially with the way he coached offense there, the way Oklahoma basically ran the Big 12 like a track meet almost every single year. Up until last season, won the Big 12 every season going up, starting from the college football playoff, making the college football playoff like 3 or 4 years. Yeah, what he did is nothing short of incredible. Especially just with his success, his acumen when it comes to quarterbacks, putting quarterbacks in the league, putting players in the league in general, recruiting offensive lines, running backs, just having a dominant offense in general. Um, that is something that cannot be understated. When you look at your transfers out, you lost Caleb Williams. It's huge. It's a guy that people are probably going to put on Heisman watch lists for the preseason, if they haven't already. Then you lost your backup, Spencer Rattler to South Carolina, and his pal Austin Stogner, your best tight end. You also lost probably your biggest impact freshman, Mario Williams, at wide receiver. You lost Jaden Hazelwood, who's been kind of out with injuries, but 2019's top either your top signee or the top wide receiver. But either way, he's a really talented talented asset that you are now missing. So that's basically your two best wide receivers, I would imagine. Patrick Fields, a 3-year starting safety. He's going to Stanford as a graduate transfer. So that's like 40. You're losing about 50% of your offensive production. That's a 47% returning, and that is good for 117th nationally. So you're losing over half of your production on offense. You're both quarterbacks, your running back, your best wide receiver. It's not fantastic. Let's look at your transfers in. Dillon Gabriel, probably the greatest quarterback who's on your roster now, General Booty. I just say that because I like his name. If you remember the USC quarterback, John David Booty, I really hope General Booty gets the start just because it was hilarious watching USC on TV, and the announcers, they would give him the RG3 treatment. They would never just call him Robert or Griffin or Griffin the Third. He's always Robert Griffin the Third. John David Booty was never John David. He was never Booty. He was just John David Booty. So those names, I guess, with a name like Booty, you've got to work in the first name, and you can't just call the guy General because that sounds a bit strange. So I'm really hoping General Booty upsets Dillon Gabriel. Other than that, you've got a guy from Cal, Hawaii, App State, Tulane, Houston, Wyoming, Louisville, Arizona State transferring in. So, not. I wouldn't. I don't see the level of production matching what you came. Like, yes, you got good guys from the transfer portal, but like, is it going to match what you lost to the NFL and the guys, the exodus of players after Lincoln Riley left? I'm not sure. I would be pretty surprised if the incoming players are better. Let's put it that way. Just players. forget coaching. I'm just saying, if you lined up a bunch of guys on paper, I would say the players that you have replacing the guys you lost, not quite as good. I'm sure Oklahoma fans are going to be all over me in the comments saying, yeah, this guy and this guy and this guy, we can lose them, whatever. But, you're a fan. And once again, this is for basically all of you, this is your first time losing a coach. Welcome to life as a non-blue blood fan. That is what happens to 99% of fan bases. Congratulations, you now know what it feels like to be a mere mortal. Enjoy coping. When I say this, I have no hate for Oklahoma. Just the way that the fans have conducted themselves by and large on social media is hilarious to me. Just acting like, total jilted lovers. They were left at the altar at the 11th hour. So whatever. But the real thing is, look, you're replacing Lincoln Riley with Jeff Lebby. Another thing, Oklahoma, as one of the most, they're a pretty sanctimonious fan base. Very holier than thou. They always talk about their success and their history, doing things right. And then you go and hire Jeff Lebby. Art, if you ever heard the name Art Briles, that coach at Baylor, who coached up RG3 and got them to, New Year's Six bowls, and then sort of maybe turned his head the other way for a bunch of rapes and sexual assaults and players just misbehaving, a whole bunch of not great stuff. Now, I'm not saying I'm just going to say allegedly, maybe, I want to protect myself legally in case Coach Art Briles is like, holy crap, there's a dude on YouTube talking crap. I gotta sue him into the dirt, allegedly. But then you go and you hire the son-in-law, which I'm not saying that just being the son-in-law makes him guilty, but looking at the optics of the situation, he goes out, speaks out publicly in defense of Art Briles, and then starts selling #CAB, Coach Art Briles t-shirts. So, it's just kind of an interesting look for a fan base that's always been kind of holier than thou. The way they carry themselves, it's not at all like Texas, more kind of like Notre Dame in a sense. So that's just kind of funny rather. But okay, so let's compare Lincoln Riley to Jeff Lebby. Lincoln Riley coached Baker Mayfield, first-round draft pick, Heisman Trophy winner, went to the college football playoff. He coached Kyler Murray, first-round draft pick, Arizona Cardinals, Heisman Trophy winner, went to the college football playoff. Jalen Hurts, NFL starting quarterback. Believe he was drafted in the first or second round. I don't really remember. I don't care, to be frank. But he was a starter. Might still be a starter. Was definitely a starter at one point. Drafted pretty highly. Jeff Lebby has got Dylan Gabriel, who's at UCF, who is now at Oklahoma with him again, and Matt Corral, who's not he's a good quarterback, but I don't think there's a single person on the planet an unbiased party who would unironically say, yeah, Matt Corral, clearly better than Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, or Baker Mayfield. There's just, come on. So that's the resume for what we're going up with. I think the recruiting, we'll see in a year. Jeff Lebby can recruit. The things he's done at Ole Miss are pretty good, but other than that, he's got 2 10-win seasons as an OC, but not the same as Lincoln Riley. And then you've got the defensive situation is really interesting because you got Brent Venables, obviously career DC more or less, coming in to be the head coach. And then he's got Todd Bates, who he brought over from Clemson. He's I think he's the defensive tackles coach, more or less, kind of worked with the D-line over at Clemson. I think, if anything, Todd Bates is probably the best piece of the puzzle that could have been brought over by Brent Venables. Huge part of his success according to, especially according to like what I see on the Clemson boards. People, whatever, just going back to look whenever Todd Bates was lured away to Oklahoma, people were like, "Oh man, kind of sad," sort of like like a Joey Maguire Baylor situation. So he's like kind of a hidden piece of the puzzle you wouldn't quite expect. But I think he will really lead to a lot of improvement on that Oklahoma defense. So I think the defense should, keyword should, be better. I think it's going to be more sound. I think the way that the offense runs, Oklahoma, the way they're used to winning games, like when they're on, not last year, but pretty much every other year, when they're winning the Big 12, Oklahoma, they don't need to have a good defense because their offense can score 60 on anyone. It's kind of like Kansas in basketball. They just get so much offensive talent. They don't need to prioritize defense because as long as they can get a few takeaways, they're just going to boat race you. So, why you don't really need to stop them from scoring. You just need to force a couple turnovers and then score 40 points, and you're probably going to win. I think that probably in the past for OU. I would imagine when they're playing stiff competition, they're probably not just going to be winning games 60-50, but I think that the offense will complement the defense. I would imagine they're probably not going to be sending the defense out for like 100 snaps a game, like under Lincoln Riley, especially whenever the Big 12 was, considered, just track meet central. Everything was a NASCAR race. Who's first to 70 points wins. I think that's in the past. The thing that is a little interesting is the hiring of Jay Valai to me. Kind of rounds out, like, I don't really know what they have co-defensive coordinators, and then Brent Venables, so he's basically got like a three-man brain trust. But Jay Valai is going to work with DBs. He was the DB coach at Rutgers, then moved to Texas, and then to Alabama last year. Now he's over at Oklahoma as co-DC and passing game coordinator, more or less. So it'll be interesting to see like the division of labor. I'm not really sure how that's going to work. Feel like that might be potential for too many cooks in the kitchen. Haven't seen many instances of that. I've seen like co-OCs at TCU, Doug Meacham and Sonny Cumbie, and Meacham I think ended up leaving for Kansas for a year and then going back, and that didn't go so well. So I don't know. We'll see how that turns out. Let's look at their schedule. See, quick prediction. I'm not going to explain too much, but we'll just kind of see how it goes. So first game, September 4th, playing UTEP, win. Playing Kent State the next week, win. At Nebraska, I think that's a sneaky difficult game. It'll be the most interesting thing to me is like there are probably going to be under 1,000 people in that stadium under the age of 30 who remember Nebraska and Oklahoma playing each other as conference rivals. So that's the stat to me. Like that's the big line, the over/under. Will there be at least 1,000 people under the age of 30 who remember vividly watching Oklahoma play Nebraska in the same conference? I do think Oklahoma will probably win that game. I don't believe in Scott Frost. I think if Nebraska had a different coach, Oklahoma might be losing that one, but I do not believe in Scott Frost at all. I think Oklahoma is going to take that one just barely again. Probably something like, I'm sure they'll probably predict a defensive game, like a 19-16 sort of. I think last year is 17-10, and which means that, of course it'll be like 45-38. But I think Oklahoma's going to take that one. Then Oklahoma goes back to Norman to play Kansas State. I think K-State, a lot of people are picking them as kind of like a sneaky dark horse. I'm kind of one of those people, last year K-State was a solid team. They just their schedule was a bit front-loaded, and then after that they came on, especially after they beat Texas Tech in Lubbock, after they got pretty hot, finished the season 8-5. I think they were like 3-4 at that point or something. And yeah, then they go on and 8-5 with a win over LSU, heavily depleted LSU in the bowl game. Next, they go on the road to Fort Worth to play TCU. As much as I love the Dykes family, Spike Dykes, especially as a Texas Tech alum, I do not have faith in Sonny in Fort Worth. I think Oklahoma is going to win that one. Red River, they don't want to call it the Red River Shootout anymore because of gun violence, right? Red River rivalry now. I'm going to call it the Red River Massacre, just because I like the guns. The Red River Massacre. I think it's going to be a pretty good game this year. I know most people are picking Texas, but I think this is the big matchup here. The big matchup is Oklahoma's offense and Texas's defense. I think if Oklahoma scores 40 points, they win outright, pretty easily probably. It's going to be how well can Texas contain Oklahoma. Oklahoma's offense taking a step back. Texas, their offense should take a step forward with Quinn Ewers. But their defense was 99th last year. It was abysmal. They gave up 200 yards per game on the ground. And if they're doing that again this year, I don't see how Oklahoma doesn't just run all over them again. So we'll see. I think Oklahoma probably... Do I have faith in Jeff Lebby? You know what? I'll give it to OU. So at this point, they're 6-0. It's a toss-up game, but I'll say they're 6-0. Okay, so Kansas win. In Ames at Iowa State, that is a tough one. I think OU drops that one. And here's why. Matt Campbell, not really expected to do much this year. Had the best team in school history, basically. 7-5. The year he went off, I think that COVID year, was it 9-1? Maybe not. Either way, the year he made the Big 12 championship game with Iowa freaking State. No one was really expecting all that much out of them. I think it's a similar thing here. I think Matt Campbell, Iowa State, they probably do better when they are dark horses. No one expects them. I think Oklahoma loses to Iowa State in Ames. Oklahoma then goes back to Norman to play Baylor. That's a tough one. Baylor losing quite a bit of production, especially defensively. However, they do know how to recruit. They recruit well. Baylor have been recruiting really, really, really well, especially since Matt Rule got there. Got Joey McGuire, local Texas guys over to recruit the area. So Baylor and also Shapen winning the job over... Who's that? Who's the other guy? Forgot his name. The old Baylor quarterback. Anyway, Shapen won the job. He's still there. The other guy left. I think that's going to be a tough game for OU. Even though it is a Norman, Baylor does, they kind of have had Oklahoma's number in recent years. I think Baylor probably pulls that one off. Then Oklahoma goes to Morgantown, West Virginia. I think that's a pretty easy win for OU. Especially if at that point Neil Brown has been fired, or it's like the writing's on the wall. If they already have 6 losses at that point, I think it's over. OU should win that one. Next up's Bedlam. It's, historically speaking, it's really easy money to put money on Oklahoma for Bedlam. I would probably do the same here. I don't think OSU has... It's not like last year where they have an elite defense with a fantastic defensive coordinator. That guy left for Ohio State. So I think OU wins Bedlam, and then final game in Lubbock at Texas Tech. As a Red Raider alum, I would love for Joey McGuire to get his first and maybe last game against Oklahoma in Lubbock as a victory. I don't think it'll probably happen. So I think OU will go 10-2 this year. I don't think that's super unreasonable. So yeah, I think they're also, I think Vegas Insider has their over-under at 9.5. So I think they'll probably just barely hit the over. But the thing is, Oklahoma has, I would call their toss-up games at Nebraska, Kansas State, Texas, Iowa State, Baylor, That's like five games that are 50-50. So, you know, maybe losing 2 or 3 games. I would consider that a slight step back from when, Lincoln Riley was here dominating the Big 12 and Oklahoma was going 11-1, 12-0 every year, and just killing teams with their offense. So, um, yeah, OU probably have a solid season. It'll be something to build off of. It'll be interesting to see how that 3-man defensive brain trust goes, or if Brent Venables just takes a step back and it's 2 guys. Either way, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Hopefully, it does for OU, except for Week 12. Hopefully, nothing works for them Week 12. Final game, whatever. Otherwise, yeah, OU, you'll be fine. But I'm not saying you're going to be the Nebraska of the SEC, but you're not going to be quite as elite as you're used to.